Today I want to talk about 7 things that only bikers will understand. There is inherently more risk taken when we ride our motorcycles, and we all understand and accept that, but there's things that we have to do or need to do in order to keep ourselves safe. And so obviously driving defensively, trying to see things before they happen, and paying attention to way more things than what typical car drivers will do. And so if you're not a motorcyclist, maybe this video will help you to understand why we do the things we do. And if you are a motorcyclist, let me know at the end of the video which one of these is your favorite or the thing you look out the most for, or maybe something that I missed off of this list completely that bikers do that cagers will never understand. The first thing, unfortunately, I have no personal experience with because it's not a lawful practice in the United States yet. That is lane splitting. But I've seen plenty of videos where cagers will get mad at motorcyclists for splitting the lane or cutting in front of them like it's some kind of a turf war. But the reason that we do this is where we can is because of rear end accidents. Now think about it like this. How many times have you seen somebody rear end another driver on just your morning commute? Happens a lot. That's one of the most dangerous things that can happen to a motorcyclist is to get rear ended. If you don't see it coming, whiplash, throw you over the handlebars. And so that's the whole idea. If you get in between the cars, somebody doesn't see you at the back of the line, it doesn't matter. You're in between the cars. You don't have that to worry about. And you got to think, we're also a smaller profile. I'd say that, I don't know this for sure, but I'd say 90% of the time, maybe even more, when there's a rear end accident, that's people simply not paying attention, looking at their phones, distracted, thinking about, what they're going to cook for dinner. I don't know people have a lot of things going on, obviously, but distracted driving and rear end accidents are especially dangerous for motorcyclists. So when you see them cutting in and out, especially in heavy traffic, that's why they do it. It's to keep themselves safe, not necessarily to cut you in line, nor are they trying to do anything malicious. It's literally to keep them from being rear-ended, knowing that this happens all of the time. And this is something I hope will actually spread throughout the United States and become lawful in way more places, ideally in every state. The next thing I want to talk about is the importance of turn signal. Some cagers, they don't realize that turn signal is installed in every car for free. It's already there. And so this is a big one because it tells other drivers what you're doing. Now you may say, hey, why are you telling people something so simple? Well, if it's that simple, use it, right? I almost honestly believe that a lot of people don't understand what they're there for. And so as a visual indicator that tells me, hey, you're about to make a move that I'm not expecting, that gives me the heads up. And then I can give the heads up to the person behind me by hitting my brakes. And so that just keeps the traffic smooth. And so again, when I'm talking about being rear-ended, this is where this really comes in handy, because if you're traveling behind a car, they don't hit their turn signal, they stop at the last minute, whip the car, left or right, you have to slam on brakes, and then the car behind you has to slam on brakes on there. So and the ABS works, by the way. Thank you, God, for ABS. And so those abrupt turns like that can be super dangerous for us as motorcyclists and as, drivers. I mean, it's just a common courtesy thing, but turn signals are so important, man. Not only to use on your bike, but for other people to use them as well in their cars. It's scary how many people you see just not even looking at the road, just driving right along. It's unbelievable, man. And the other side of that is having good lighting, right? I'm sure people look at us and they say, man, they do all this stuff to their motorcycle. But a lot of the things we do actually is for safety as well. Now, let's be honest. We want to make our bikes look as good as possible. But having additional lighting and having the brightest lights that we possibly can is super important. Again, you got to think about our profile. We're the third of the width of a car, in a Harley Bagger or something, less for other types of bikes. And again, how many times have you seen people rear-ended? So if I have super bright lights, strobe lights from, Custom Dynamics, additional LEDs on my tour pack, whatever I can do to bring more attention to the rear and the front of the bike, that's going to help us be seen. So it's not just an aesthetic thing. Lighting is super important. Using your turn signals is important, and the lighting you have on your motorcycle is even more important. Another thing I want to talk about, loud pipes save lives. Now, there's a South Park episode where Cartman is talking to a bunch of bikers. I don't know if y'all have seen it, but anyways, it's hilarious. I can't really repeat it here, but I still think it's funny, right? Even as a motorcyclist. But loud pipes can help you be heard as well. Now, I don't think it's as important as good lighting. People are in their cars, they're on the Bluetooth, they're talking on the phone, they have the radio playing, whatever the case may be. And so they're not always going to hear you, but this is hopefully another deterrent that you can use and another indicator that, hey, I'm right there. Remember, not all vehicles have blind spot monitoring. I wish they all did. I mean, most new cars are coming with it, but not every car on the road has that. And so again, it's a good indicator if you are riding and coming up against another vehicle or coming beside another vehicle, blipping that throttle, hopefully, or staying on the throttle a little bit, will let them know, oh, okay, I got somebody around me. I need to pay attention to what's going on. Again, we're harder to see from the front, back, and side. And so any visual indicator, an audible indicator is a good thing. It's not just to make our bike sound good. Let's be honest again, we put, pipes on our motorcycles because we want it to sound good, but it also serves another purpose. Next thing I want to talk about is the actual skill that it takes to ride a motorcycle. Most people can get into a car, learn to drive that car, and have no real issues. Now, there are obviously skilled drivers and unskilled drivers, but the same works for motorcyclists. But there's a lot more that goes into motorcycle riding and being a good motorcycle rider than just getting on, turning the handlebars, and hitting the throttle. Slow speed maneuver and clutch and throttle relationship, your relationship with your rear brake, learning when to turn, how to adjust on gravel or grass, learning how to traverse over some bridges and grading in the road and potholes, knowing how to adjust for, riding in rain and adverse conditions. I mean, all of this plays a role into motorcycle riding. Obviously being a defensive rider is super important. And so there's a lot of skill that goes into it, right? One mistake in a motorcycle, you could go down if you don't know how to handle that situation. Whereas in a car, you run off the road a little bit, you correct and get back on, no big deal. You do that in a motorcycle, well, you're probably going to have a bad day. Learning how to navigate turns whenever you're up in the twisties or the mountains, or maybe you live in the mountains, who knows? I mean, all of this is so wildly different on a motorcycle than it is a car. Knowing when to hit your brakes. You can't just slam on those brakes like you can in a vehicle. And so the skill it takes to ride a motorcycle, when you see somebody doing that and they're going through the twisties and all that kind of stuff, just understand that they've spent time doing that. And so the more you practice, the more you learn, the better motorcyclist you will be. And it takes a lot more skill to do that than it does just to simply drive a car. How about this one? Knowing so much about the weather, you could probably be a meteorologist. Not just knowing if it's going to rain or be nice outside, but knowing, hey, we have a high pressure sitting over us for a while. Or, hey, there's a cold front coming in. It's going to be rainy for a couple of days. I mean, I'm not saying everybody takes it to that extreme. But what I am saying is that, constantly checking the weather and kind of seeing how things are looking for that road trip that you're going to take or your daily commute. Now, this not only affects, if we're going to ride or not, but also, do we need to pack rain gear? Do we actually need to pack a heavy coat or something if we're going from our climate to a colder environment, which I learned back in March when I went from South Carolina to Tennessee, thinking, oh man, South Carolina down here, it's like 60s, 70s. What is my friend talking about? Because he told me to get chaps and all this kind of stuff. And then I go up there and I wake up the next morning, it's 30 degrees outside as opposed to 60 where I was. And so, understanding the differences in weather, how things change, and those things can change very quickly, especially with pop-up storms and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying, oh yeah, know the weather so you never ride in adverse conditions. But what I am saying is that, having a good way to check the weather and understand how things change is something that, a lot of motorcyclists will do. This next one I think is one we can all relate to as motorcyclists: never having enough storage. Right? You're in a car, you're in a truck, you toss things around, whatever. You got plenty of room, right? On a motorcycle, you have to plan these things, right? You don't just take folded clothes and throw them in the back seat. You roll those things up so you get more space. Planning where those things will be, right? You're going on a longer trip. Okay, I got in my case, right? I got my rain gear, gimbal, tripod in the right bag. I got a clothes bag in the left saddle bag. I got my camera equipment in the tour pack, portable air compressor, maybe even a toolkit, whatever needs to be taken so you are self-sufficient on the road. If you get a flat tire or something, in a car, it's inconvenient, but on a bike, it could be detrimental. And so having all of these things and having them in a way that you can carry all of them and not do like I did when I went back in March before the tour pack and just have things bungee cord around the sissy bar, planning those things out is super important. And it almost seems like there's never enough storage. And this is even worse if you're going on a road trip and you don't have a bagger. Maybe you have an Iron or a Scout, or a Yamaha or something else, KTM, whatever it may be. And really having to plan those things out and make sure you only bring the essentials. So that's something that all motorcyclists deal with at some point or another. And the last thing I'll talk about, not every bike is a Harley. It's like the universal language. It's like when people don't know guns, right? I have a gun channel as well. And so, if somebody doesn't know anything about a gun, they say, oh man, is that a Glock? No, it's not. It's a Smith & Wesson or a Canic or whatever. Not every bike is a Harley Davidson. I love Harleys, but there's Indians, there's Hondas, there's Kawasaki, there's Yamaha, there's Buell. I mean, there's so many, it's like saying every vehicle, hey, is that a Chevy? No, it's a Toyota. There's not just one manufacturer. And so that's just a small pet peeve that I wanted to end with there. But I know probably at some point you may have heard that, hey, that's a nice Harley, and you're driving a freaking, FZ07 or something, who knows. So anyways, man, I'd love to hear some of the things that you've heard or some of the things that you think only bikers understand, and I may use those things in a future video. Big thanks to you guys. If you like what I do, consider joining the channel and make sure you subscribe. See you all in the next one, and as always, hold them down.